This video is going to be a comprehensive guide on how to get admissions in the US for either masters or for PhD along with funding. I'm going to take you step by step right from the very beginning of how to select the universities, how to shortlist them, what are the exams to give, how to apply, what timeline to follow, and each and every step. So stick around for the rest of the video. Hi everyone, for those who are new to the channel, I am Zain Khan. I did my bachelor's from GIK Pakistan and currently I am doing my master's in mechanical engineering from USA with a 150% scholarship. I know the entire process of applying for a master's or a PhD program in the US can seem daunting, and if you don't have a strong profile or you cannot afford it and you have to get a scholarship as a must, then the process becomes even tougher. I know because I was in your shoes around a year or 2 years ago. I wanted to get a scholarship at any cost. So what I did was I devised a complete systematic system, a list of steps that I could follow, and I did. And it turned out to be insanely successful for me. I got into 5 universities, out of which 3 offered substantial amount of funding. This funding ranged from 80% right up to 150%. So this video is going to be a complete comprehensive guide right from the very start on how to look for universities, what exams to give, what timeline to follow, and how to get funding. So it is going to be an A to Z guide. I'm going to walk you through the entire step-by-step process. I'm going to put timestamps on this video, so feel free to jump around if you want to. However, I would encourage you to watch the video in its entirety. I know it is going to be long, but all the steps are going to be interlinked, so it would be more beneficial if you watch the video as a whole. So I'm going to start from the very beginning, assuming you have no idea what to do. You just have this my idea of going for a master's or PhD to the US, and you want to focus on getting funding. So the first step is to get an idea of where you stand currently. The way to go about this step is to do a preliminary research of the universities in the US. The mistake that I see most of the people doing is that they research the universities as a very last step, and I think that is a huge blunder. Here's why. So firstly, by researching the universities, you get to know their time frame. You get to know when their fall admissions are, when their spring admissions are, and when is the deadline to apply. And you also get to know about priority deadlines, something which we will talk later in this video. Secondly, you get to know what their admissions requirements are. You get to know how many LORs you require, which is letter of recommendations, how to go about the SOP, which English proficiency exams you require, do you require GRE, GPAT, and everything. So you get an idea of their admission requirements as well. Thirdly, you get to know where you stand and what scores you should target on the exams that we just talked about. And fourthly, you get an idea of the different programs being offered. If let's say you have done your bachelor's in mechanical engineering, it doesn't mean that you have to go and get a master's in mechanical engineering. You can go for a master's in automotive engineering. You can do master's in robotics. You can do master's in maintenance. You can do master's in reliability. You can do master's in so many related fields. So by researching the universities at the start, you will get to know the different programs that are being offered, and then you can focus accordingly. This step is going to take you not more than 1 day. So I highly recommend that you do start with this step. So the way to go about this is by visiting usnews.com. It is a website that maintains the rankings of all the schools and colleges in the US. So let me pull up my browser. Here, let me go to usnews.com. And don't worry, I'm going to put the links to everything that I'm going to access. I'm going to put the downloadable links to all the files that I use and everything, so don't worry about that. So I go to usnews.com and then I go to the education section here, and then on the top I can see grad schools. If you're applying for masters or PhD, you would want to go to grad schools. If you are applying for bachelor's, you go to colleges. Now I go to grad schools. Now here, if I browse the website, I can see that it lists the graduate school ranking for best business schools, law schools, medical schools, engineering schools. As an example, let me show you what to do if you want to apply for a master's in mechanical engineering. So you click here, see full rankings list. Now it takes you to this page. I would encourage you to bookmark this link. I am going to put a link down in the description of this video. So here you can see that there are around 214 schools. So these are the schools which offer a graduate degree in engineering. So now these are your potential list of schools that you can apply to if you are applying for a master's in mechanical engineering. So now one would be tempted to go to the specialties and select mechanical engineering, but you shouldn't do that. Why? The reason is once you select mechanical engineering, if you go down, you are going to see that it just lists a few universities and it then asks you to get a subscription. And since I'm assuming most of you won't have a subscription for US news, so the way to go about it is you deselect this, you go to all specialties. So the thing that you are going to notice is that all the universities have been sorted according to their rank from high to low. So at the top, it is going to be the Ivy Leagues, at the bottom, then the mid-tier universities. So what I would encourage you is to not aim for the very top, but aim for the mid-tier schools. Don't get me wrong, these mid-tier schools are not bad schools. They are equally good schools. But the reason that I'm asking you to target mid-tier schools is because number one, it is easier to get into them. Their admission requirements isn't that strict. And number two, you would stand a better chance of getting a scholarship in the mid-tier schools as compared to the top tier schools. So let's say if I am researching and I'm doing the first step, which is doing a preliminary research of the universities, I'm going to browse down, load more, and I'm going to go to a university which has a ranking of somewhere around 80. So somewhere around here, if I go up, I can see different universities listed. And now let's say I select Colorado State University. I can obviously click read more and read more about this university from US News, but the US News website isn't that updated and it would be better off to get all the information from the university website itself. So I go to google.com, I type in the university's name, let's say Colorado State University, and I go to their website. Now every university's website is going to be a little different. It might take you a little bit of time to be able to navigate through the website, but once you visit a few websites of the different universities, you will get to know generally how it works. So let's say I want to apply to the graduate program in mechanical engineering. So I go to academics, I browse through and I can see the graduate thing. Okay, I click learn more. I go here and I see explore graduate programs. I browse down and now I can search here. Let's say I want to apply to mechanical engineering. Now here I can see the three programs of mechanical engineering, which is ME, MS and PhD. Just to be very quick, the difference between ME and MS is usually that ME is focused more towards industry while MS is focused more towards academics. So if you want to get a scholarship or at least stand a chance of getting a scholarship, MS is the program to apply to, not the ME one. So let's say I want to apply to the MS program. I click here and I get to this page. Now, during this stage, which is the preliminary stage, you want to extract four things from every university's website. First being the admission requirements, second being the time frame of admissions, third being the research areas, and fourth being the scores that you want to target. So if I browse down in this website, I can see that they have areas of study listed as these. So that does satisfy one of my requirements. And if I browse down, I can see that they don't have really a lot of information listed on this web page. Now, how things work in the US is that there is usually a graduate school and there is a department. So these are two independent departments, and usually both of these are going to have their own web pages for the same graduate program. So you would want to check out both the web pages. Now I can see that it has a link to the department's website. So this is the link I want to check out next. And I can also make a mental note that GRE is not required for this university. So I go to the department's website next. I open this website, and how I am going to know that this is a department website is usually at the top it says the Department of Mechanical Engineering. So I browse down. I see, okay, I'm looking for graduate programs, explore. Now I can see all the degrees listed. I am interested in MS in Mechanical Engineering. Okay, learn more. And now I can see the requirements, coursework, thesis, resources, contact. Let me browse down. Here are the requirements, which are the degree requirements. I'm not really concerned about that at the moment. it tells me the core courses, it tells me thesis credits. Just by having a look at these, I can see the different researches that are going on and the research areas that this particular program is focusing on. If I browse down, so I see a link to application guide and admission. This is what I want. So let me go to this link. So now, yeah, this is the page I want to get to. So I can see the applications deadlines here. Now, there's this online program and there's this on-campus program. I don't really care about the online program. So I can see that the FOIA admission deadline is January 15th, and there is a very interesting sentence below it, which says full consideration will be given to applicants who have submitted all documents by January 15th. So what this means is that January 15th is the priority deadline. It is a deadline that you should always apply by in order to get the maximum chance of not only getting an admission into the university but also to secure funding. And it says that you might be able to get accepted if you apply by April 1st. But generally, the first deadline, which is the priority deadline, is what we would be targeting. And if you want to apply to the spring semester, your deadline is August 1st. And right off the bat, I can see that this university only offers admission in two different semesters, which is the fall and the spring. There is no summer intake. Okay, moving forward. So now I can see here, these are the application materials. Just by having a quick look, I can see that they require a CV, a SOP, 3 letters of recommendation, original transcripts, and here it tells me that there might be other things required by international applicants. Okay, moving forward, these are the admission requirements, and it says the criteria is you need to have a bachelor's degree in an engineering field. Your GPA for MS must be 3.0 or on a scale of 4 during your undergrad. Okay, and it also lists that for international applicants must meet English proficiency requirements here. So I click here and I go to this page. Now I browse down and I can see, okay, so now I can see what English proficiency test they require and their minimum scores. So I can see that they either require a TOEFL or an IELTS, and these are the tests that they do not accept. So I would either give TOEFL or an IELTS in order to get into this university. Okay, and they also tell me what their minimum score is, which is 6.5 and 515 paper based or 80 internet based. Okay, moving back, if I go down, so at this stage I have already extracted all the 4 things that I required. I have extracted their admission deadlines, including the priority deadlines. I have extracted the admission requirements. I have extracted the minimum scores that they wanted, and I have extracted the research areas. So now it doesn't make much sense to spend more time on this particular university's website. I can have a quick look in the FAQs and see if something else catches my eye. So here, okay, so do you require GRE? GRE is not required. Okay, and that is kind of all that I want to get out of this website. Now, what I would recommend is you make either an Excel file or a Google Sheet and input all this information that you have gathered into that, like I am doing now. So once you have visited a university's website, extracted these 4 things, it's time to move on. So you need to go back to the US News rankings page and select the next university and do the same thing. It is going to typically take you around an hour to do this for every university. It took me less time since I have a little experience in doing it, but what you should try to aim is you should try to get done with 5 to 6 different universities. Now coming to the next step, which is deciding which exams to give. Generally, if you are applying for an engineering degree, you need to give GRE. If you are applying for a non-engineering degree, you need to give GMAT. Unless your prior degree, which is either your master's or your bachelor's, is from the US. Also, you need to give an English proficiency test, which is generally either a TOEFL or an IELTS. Now, if you have done the first step and you have compiled the data for 5 to 7 universities, you would have an Excel file or a Google Sheet similar to this. So this is just the dummy data, just to give you an idea. So notice that it has got the university names, the priority deadlines. The focus is on getting the priority deadlines, the research areas, and the other requirements. Now here, I can see that half of the universities require GRE while the other half do not. Generally, what happens is majority of the universities that do not require GRE are like, it would be good if you have already given GRE, and if you want to send this course, that would add on to your application, and that would be a plus point. So if I were a student, I would definitely attempt the GRE and give it, and this would be my target scores, the minimum scores that I want to target. So I would try and get above 145 in quantitative, above 140 in verbal, and above 3 in analytical. Now, for the English proficiency, I can see that this Duolingo is not accepted in majority of the universities, so I won't bother giving this. I would give either the TOEFL or the IELTS, and I can see what minimum scores I do want to target. And I can see that generally universities require 3 LORs. So from this, I can see that I need to get done with everything and submit my applications by 15 December, since I would obviously be targeting the earliest deadline. So at this stage, I have enough information to know what the universities generally require, what the deadlines are, what the research areas are, and now I can start preparing for the exams. I would try to score the maximum, and a pro tip is that if you give an exam and you don't get as much marks as you were expecting, let's say you give GRE and you were expecting above 320, you get 315, it is always a wise decision to retake the exam. The exam fees is comparably very small as compared to your tuition fees. So if you can retake the exam, get better marks and get scholarships, you would be compensated at least 100 times by that scholarship. So it is always a wise decision that if you think you can score better, to retake the GRE or the GMAT or even the English proficiency exams. So now you have done the initial research of the universities, you have decided which exams to give. The next step is deciding when, and you have to make a proper timeline. So that is the next step in the process, to make a proper timeline. So let us make our way backwards from the start session in which you want to start, all the way back. So let's say you want to start in the fall session, which is starting in the mid of August. So for the fall sessions, we have seen that the application deadlines are somewhere around the mid of January. You would ideally want to have a month to fill out the applications of the universities, submit your LORs, and to ensure that all your test results reach the university. So a month before, it brings us to around mid-December. And before that, you would need to write an SOP and make an academic CV, and to contact the people who are going to write your letter of recommendations. So I would keep around 10 to 15 days for that. That brings us to the start of December. Now going back further, you have to give your 2 exams. One is the English proficiency exam and the other is either your GRE or the GMAT. Now, it would vary person to person on how much time you would want to dedicate to these exams, but generally you would want to dedicate far more time to the GRE or the GMAT as compared to the English proficiency exam. The reason being that your scholarships and your application process would depend more on the GRE or the GMAT result rather than your English proficiency test. That does not mean that you do not focus on the English proficiency test, since you do need to meet the minimum requirement for that. But other than that, as long as if the minimum requirement is 6.5, you get a 7, you are good to go on that. I don't know much about GMAT, but I have given GRE, so I know in GRE there are 3 components: the analytical, verbal, and the quantitative, and it does take a lot of practice to be able to ace them. So for the English proficiency and the GRE, I would say you should keep around 4 months time frame for to study for those exams. So that brings us all the way back to the start of August. Now I would say keep a 1 month's buffer or a safety factor for 2 reasons. First, not everything goes according to plan, so you need to have that slight margin. And secondly, you need to leave room in order to retake the exams if you think you can get better, but you aren't able to get it in the first attempt. So that brings us all the way back to July. So if you want to get admitted for the fall session, you have to start this preparation 1 year before in the previous July. I know it can seem a little daunting and a little disheartening, but don't be. By doing this, you would be able to maximize your chances in order to get funding, and that is what we are looking for. Not just admissions, but funding as well. And one of the reasons that I've kept this timeline so relaxed and extended is because of the next step, which is probably the most crucial step of all, which is to shortlist the universities where you would stand the maximum chance of getting a scholarship. But before we go on to that, let me just quickly tell you about the three types of fundings that are in US. So the first type of funding is a GRA position, which is a graduate research assistant. In this position, what happens is you are going to work under a professor and you are going to do research under him, and in return the university is going to waive off your tuition, so there's going to be no tuition and you are going to get a small stipend. Usually the stipend is enough for one person to survive and manage all his expenses during the time of the degree. The second form of funding is the GTA, which is Graduate Teaching Assistant. It is similar to a GRA position, but here you are not doing any research with a professor, but rather you are either teaching a minor course or you are checking exam papers and helping the professor out. So here also you normally get a tuition waiver and you get a small stipend. And the third form of funding is to get a scholarship, which is straight up tuition waiver. You don't have to work, you don't have to grade the exam papers, you don't have to do any research, you just get a straight up tuition waiver. So that's if you get 80% scholarship, your 80% tuition fees is waived off. Now coming to the next step, which is shortlisting the universities where you stand the maximum chance of getting funding. Now this is going to be unique to every person. Now this step you have to do side by side while you are studying for your exams and even after you have given those exams. It is going to be a long graduate process, so you have to start somewhere in August according to our timeline. So the way to go about it is you go back to usnews.com, the rankings page, and now you go to the university's website again, but this time remaining laser focus. You are looking for funding especially. So you have to look out for specific things that I'm going to tell you now while visiting the websites. This process is going to take you a lot of time, and ideally you want to get done with as many universities as you can. So if there are 200 universities in your search criteria, if you can get 200, that would be perfect. But that won't be possible. So I would say get done with somewhere around 40 to 60 universities. It is going to take a lot of time. It is going to take 4 to 6 hours per university. But if you do it gradually over time, if you make a habit of doing one university every 3 days, you are going to get done with 50, 60 universities in like 7, 8 months. Before I tell you what things you have to look for, what emails to send, how to know exactly what your chances are of getting a funding, I would encourage you to go back to the Excel file or the Google sheet that you created, make a new sheet and make a number of columns. The first would be university, then put a column for fees per semester, then put a few columns to the links to the courses, tuition fees, requirement links, and then put a column for emailed with a question mark and then a remarks column. Also put at the bottom the legends that you are seeing. So you put the legend if the university is a good fit, you still have to decide or you don't have to apply. And the other legend is for if you have emailed them and received the reply or not, or if you have to follow up. Don't worry, I'm going to put a downloadable version of this Google Sheet down in the description, so feel free to download it. And now I go back to the rankings page and I browse the different universities and let me select one university. Let me go down. Let's say I want to select this university, Montana State University. So the first thing I would do is I would go to my Google Sheet. I would type in the serial number, type in the website name, Montana State University, and I would start filling this out. Now remember, I am doing an in-depth research on the university, so it is going to take me some time. So I go to Google, I type Montana State University, I go to the main page. Here I just browse until I get to the right section. So I am looking for graduate admissions. I browse down, find your program. Okay, I go to this, and now I can see, yeah, I'm looking for mechanical engineering masters. So here, giving it a read, I can see that Montana State University is offering both a Masters of Science program and a Masters of Engineering program. Now, in order to get funding, I know that I have to apply to the Masters of Science program. That is done. Now, I can also see that they are also offering admission to a PhD program. Now, if you are applying for masters and you are looking for funding, it is always a good idea to see if the university is offering a PhD program as well. The reason being that the universities that offer PhD programs are the ones that have a lot of funds with them, and they are the ones that usually support their graduate students. So if a university is not offering PhD in the field in which you are intending to apply to for masters, just cross out the university. It is not worth applying to, since there's a 99% chance you won't get a scholarship. Now, reading through it, going down, I get to this section which says fund your education, and this is what I am interested in. And right here it says, additionally, most of our incoming graduate students are funded with teaching assistantships for at least their first year. So most of the incoming graduate students. So this means that if you get in, there is a more than 50% chance that you would be funded. That is great. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste this in my Google Sheet, and I'm just going to paste the link of this too so that I know where I got this information from. Here we go. Now, moving forward, I can see that the admission requirement, they do not require GRE, which is good. And now I have seen this website, so which is this Montana State University. Now I'm guessing that this is the graduate school's website, and there would be a department's website too. So here I can see that there's a link to the department's website. So I go to that. Now it shows me the different degrees that are offered. I am interested in MS in mechanical engineering. So now it shows me two plans, plan A and plan B, the thesis option and the non-thesis option. Normally, if you are looking for funding, you would always want to apply to the thesis option. Normally, non-thesis options are self-funded, so you don't want to go that route. So I go to the thesis option and I read the admission requirements, the degree requirements. Okay, I can see the different research areas of this university. Okay, the general requirements. Okay, the core courses. Okay, this gives me a good idea of what the mm, main courses are. Now I can always put the course link here. So these are the main courses. I can put it here, just so at the end when I am done researching all the different universities, and it would take you around a lot of time and it would span over 6 to 8 months. So when the at the end, when you have finally shortlisted the universities, you won't need to go back and search for specific parts again. You would have this complete sheet with you, complete database of all the universities you have researched. And trust me, it is going to save you a lot of time. So now I just browse and I'm looking for anything that might seem interesting to me. Mm, so I think I've already visited this. Let me check. Oh, this is the same website. Okay. And I go back to this and I see the funding opportunity again. It says the same thing here. That is good. Now it tells me the deadlines. So the deadline is February 1st for the fall semester. And remember that this is the priority deadline, the deadline that you want to apply by. So I'm going to continue browsing the website for more things. Let me go to this page and let me find out what the tuition cost is. I need to have a good idea of what the tuition cost is just in case I don't get full funding. So I should know how expensive the university is. So here, there must be a tuition option somewhere here. This looks like it. Expenses, estimated. Yeah. So it tells me the estimated expenses for undergraduate degree and the graduate degree. So since you are going to be an international student, you will be considered as a non-resident. So you have to check out the non-resident rates. Here I can see that the non-resident rates per semester, just the tuition fees is somewhere around 9,250. So I'm just going to copy this link, paste it here, and the fees is somewhere around 9257. Okay. So now what I know is I know how much the fees is. I know the courses. Now I need to find out the requirements. So I go here, I browse down, and here is the application requirements. So I can see that the requirements are they require a 3.0 GPA, three letters of recommendation, statement of purpose, and English proficiency test. Going here, oh, so here is the complete page with all the requirements that they have, including the GPA, letter of reference. They tell me that the graduate exam is not required. They require a personal statement. They require um, either a TOEFL or an IELTS, and they require a resume. So this is the page of admission requirement. I just copy this, I paste it here, and now when I am researching the universities, I would have already started studying for my GRE or GMAT and my English proficiency exam. So I would know how much I am likely to score. So from that knowledge and comparing this, I can get a good idea if I would be able to get admission to this university or not. Now, to quickly review the university, I know that it is a mid-tier university. I know that they offer funding to most of the graduates, and I now know what their admission requirements are. And if I meet the admission requirements, then it looks like a very favorable university to apply to. However, there are a few things that I cannot find on the website. Firstly, I can't find if they would offer me funding along with the letter of acceptance, or are they going to inform me after I arrive on campus. Ideally, you would want to get the funding information and the confirmation of funding at the time of admission. Secondly, I need to find out that do I need to apply for funding or any scholarship separately, or is it just going to be my admission process and they are going to pick the student for funding from there only. And thirdly, I also need to find out what the preferred scores is. What I have seen from the website is the minimum cutoff requirement. Now there is another thing which is the preferred score, which is kind of what they are looking for. So if I can get an idea of what scores they are looking for, and if I meet those, then my chances of getting admitted and getting a scholarship would be like many times greater. So these are the three things that I can't find on the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to email the person in charge and find out this information. Now, you have to be very careful as to whom you email. Generally, the person you have to email is the graduate program secretary. Let me find out who that is. So I go back, I go to the faculty and staff, I open this, and let me browse through it. Let me control F, graduate committee member, programs coordinator. Okay, so Kathy Campbell looks like the person whom I should contact because she is the graduate academic coordinator, which is just another word for graduate secretary. So I should be contacting her for this information. One of the mistakes that I have seen a few people make is that they just directly email the program head, and the program head is normally very busy and he won't be able to get back to you. So you should be emailing the support staff, the person who is in charge of the graduate program, which is usually the graduate academic coordinator or the graduate secretary. And of course, you can CC the program coordinator as well, which is the program head for the graduate program that you are applying for. But this person is the person you would want to email. So the way I would compose an email is I'm going to compose a very short email. At first, I'm going to express my interest in so and so set program, and then I'm going to ask him or her a couple of questions and number them just to make sure that it is easy for the other person to answer. Back when I was researching the universities, I did research Montana State University and I sent Kathy an email and she replied back. She told me what the preferred scores were and I did match those. So just knowing what the preferred score is can be a game changer. And she also told me that I don't need to apply separately for the funding, it would be considered automatically along with the admission application. And she told me that they would inform me whether I get the funding or not before I apply for the visa. So everything did work in my favor, everything checked out, everything was favorable. So this was a good university for me to apply to. And if you get the same response, it would be a great university for you to apply to too. So what I would do is once I email the graduate secretary, I would type yes, here, and I would even color this as orange just so I know that I have emailed someone and I'm still waiting for a reply. Once I get the reply, I'm just going to mark this green just as a visual indication. So once I get the reply, I'm going to mark this green. And if everything checks out, if it looks like a good university where I stand a good chance of getting funded, then I would color this box green, and then I would move on to the next university. Obviously, this is a university which was highly favorable, and it is what I would call a jackpot. Most of the universities won't be so good, and that is the reason why we are putting so much effort into it. We are trying to find 3 to 5 universities out of the 50 universities that we are looking into, and trying to find 3 to 5 universities that we can shortlist where we stand a very good chance, and we are going to apply to those universities. And remember, it does take a lot of money to just apply to a university. So you have to be very thoughtful of which universities to apply to. So back when I was doing my research, I emailed another university and I'm going to put a screenshot on what they replied, and their reply was favorable as well. But of course, majority of the time the reply that you get won't be so favorable, and that is expected. But the good thing is that 90% of the time you would always get a reply. If you don't, you can always follow up once, and that is perfectly okay. Just a side note that this university worked out just for me based on my profile, and when you are doing your research, just don't apply to this university blindfoldedly. Just do your research, look at different universities that are there, and see which university you stand the best chance of getting a scholarship, and try to shortlist them and apply to them. At the end, obviously you would want to apply to 3 to 5 universities, or if you can afford to, maybe 7. So this is the actual Google sheet that I use. It has got all these universities that apply to all the different things, the remarks, and based on it I was able to shortlist the universities that I applied to. One final thing is, in this section I have told you how to research and shortlist universities based on a certain criteria, which was how to get funding. Now, let's say if you are not looking for funding, but you are looking for another criteria. Let's say your undergrad GPA was low, your undergrad GPA was somewhere around 2.5. So now you can do the entire same process, but instead of focusing on funding, you are going to focus on your undergrad GPA. So you can ask them, email them, and ask them if they would be willing to accept people with 2.5 GPAs. You can take their preferred scores. You can ask them if they can provide you with the last year's intake average score. They often do that too. So you just email them and ask them if they can provide you with the average last year's GPA of the batch that they took. So it would give you a good idea. Now, a few general tips to get funding. So the first is, if you are intending to apply to a master's program and you do intend to apply to a PhD program later on, skip the master's, apply directly to the PhD program. So what that does is, instead of getting a master's degree first and then a PhD, you just apply to a PhD program and get masters along the way in one single stretch. The reason being that most of the scholarships, yeah, the TA and GA positions are reserved for the PhD students. So if you apply for a PhD, get in and become a PhD student, your chances of getting scholarships will be much higher. Secondly, apply for the masters in science rather than masters in engineering. So MS, not ME. Thirdly, whenever given an option, apply for the thesis route, not the non-thesis route, since almost all the funding is for the thesis candidate. Fourthly, apply by the priority deadline. This is so important. Do not miss the priority deadline at any cost. Look out for universities that provide funding offer along with the admission offer. So that way you will get to know at the time of getting admitted whether you have got funding or not. And that is always a good place to be, to know before going to the university whether you are funded or not. And this goes without saying that you should look to apply to those universities where you stand a good chance of getting a funding. And always ask and make sure that they are going to consider you for funding along with the admission application, and you don't need to apply separately to get the funding. And lastly, retake your GRE, GMAT, or your English proficiency scores if you don't score good. It is always better to retake and get a better score than to trying out your luck. The cost to retake is very small as compared to the benefits of getting a good score. Now, let's say you have given your GRE or your GMAT, you have given your English proficiency exams, you have shortlisted the universities. Now comes the time of filling out the applications. The applications of almost all the universities are going to be kind of similar. So what you would do is you would go to their website and you would register with your email, and they're going to send you a link and you start filling it out. I would highly encourage you to do all of this on your own and to not go to a consultant. It is possible to do it all on your own, and it is easy, trust me. So the things that they would require from you is your basic details. They would ask you to upload your statement of purpose. They would ask for your academic CV. They would ask you to state your unofficial GRE score or your GMAT score and English proficiency score and your undergrad scores, that is your undergrad GPA. Notice that I said unofficial. The reason is because they also ask you to get the official score sent directly to them. So you would need to send the university you are applying to three of the official things. First being your undergrad transcript directly from your from the university you did your bachelor's from to this new university. The second being your English proficiency test directly from the testing center to the university. And third is your GRE or your GMAT scores if required. And while filling in the application, you are going to see places where you can write the email addresses of the people whom you want to request your recommendations from. So once you enter the email, click save, it is going to send them an email automatically from the university's portal with the link. They click the link and they are able to fill out your letter of recommendations online. Now, something very important to note is that only after your application is complete and all your official results have been received by the university is your entire application marked as complete. So just by submitting your application online doesn't constitute to a completed application. So what you would need to do is you would need to get it submitted, get all your letter of recommendations submitted to the university, and get all the official transcripts sent to them in order for your application to be marked complete and to be reviewed by the graduate committee. And you need to make sure that all of this happens before the priority deadline. So that is the reason why I highly encourage you to start filling out the application at least 20 days to a 30 days time frame before the priority deadline. Now once all of this is done, all you need to do is wait. Sometimes it takes 20 days to a couple of months depending on the university for them to let you know if you have been admitted or not. So that brings us to kind of the end of this video. I tried to make this guide as comprehensive as possible for getting an admission for Masters or PhD in the US and breaking it down step by step into very systematic steps that you can follow to get funding. Of course, I know there were a lot of things that I could have covered in more detail, but I couldn't due to time constraint. So like I could have gone into more detail on how to study for GRE. I could have told you in more detail how to write an SOP, how to make an academic CV, whom to contact in order to get the best out of recommendations and so forth. But if you think that you would benefit from me making a video on any of those, just let me know down in the comments. Also, if you have any comment related to this video, any query, anything was unclear, just let me know down in the comments and I will make sure I get back to you. I'm going to read and reply to every single comment I get on this video. I sincerely hope that this video was worth your time. If it was, leave a like and share it with your network so that maximum people can take advantage of it. Here is my LinkedIn profile, so feel free to add me as a friend, to follow me, to send me a message if anything is unclear or if you need further guidance. I would be more than willing to help. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel in order to get updated to more videos related to this. And when you do get admitted to a university, hopefully with funding, do comment below, do let me know. Nothing will make me more prouder than knowing that someone followed this video and got an admission into a university with funding. That is all. Take care and bye-bye.